Yes, Fred. Good morning. Fred just ate. I figured you'd like to see the part two of our bento dough. So I put it in a salad container and I put it in the fridge overnight. And I just took it out maybe about 10 minutes ago. As you can see, it's got some nice airy structures. Um, I'm probably not going to collapse it much. I might just use a pair of scissors to like snip through the dough and then um, maybe I won't steam all of it today. Maybe I'll do it throughout the week. But I woke up a little bit later today because our neighbor, I'm just gonna brush my teeth because I didn't do it. Our neighbor had an alarm set for like 6 a.m. and I don't know why their phone is on a vibration that's so loud that we can hear it as if it were in the next room over. And we tried to go upstairs and like knock on her door. And we've done this before too because this isn't the first time that it's happened. To tell her that like her cell phone alarm is way too loud and she should move it somewhere else or turn it off. But nobody responded, so I wrote a note, taped it to her door. Hopefully she sees it, but I got home pretty late because the subways took double the time to take me home last night after the birthday party, and I'm pretty exhausted. So anyway, I just woke up. I just fed Fred an hour late. I think he just pooped. I'm about to brush my teeth, and then we'll figure out what to do with this mantou. I want to steam off a couple of small ones just so I can take it to Lala later. But anyway, happy Sunday. details you didn't ask for, but I'm going to share anyway because I have nothing else to say. It turns out, um, I I guess I gave myself forehead burns, I think, when I was making the chili oil episode and retesting it 2 weeks later before the recipes went live. There was a oil splatter and I felt it flick my face and I was like, oh, it's fine. Let's just wipe it away and move on. And then bam, like 36 hours later, I'm like, huh, what are these marks on my forehead? And then I figured it was probably the oil splatter. Anyway, Fred also had diarrhea last night. Welcome to share time, where I give you all the inane details of my life. Before I do dishes, and while my hands are relatively clean, I am going to apply some moisturizer on my new tattoo, and I figured you might want to see it. So here's my new tattoo. You ready? I got it on May 11th. So we're going to use a very thin layer of Eucerin, followed by a thin layer of Aquaphor. I don't think you can see on the camera, but some of the color is falling out as it heals, which means that I'll probably need to get it touched up. But we won't think about that now. We will just let the skin do its thing, and we'll come back to it later. Ta-da! There we go. That is the tattoo. I watched Everything, Everywhere, All at Once yesterday. Oh no, what happened to Noreen? Oh. Damn, Noreen. Life really does just come out of nowhere. Yes. So, no, you should watch it. You should watch the movie. It is equal parts crying and laughing. Of course I cried. There's one scene where they are talking in the parking lot outside the laundromat that I think was the moment when I was like weeping because I've had the first part of that conversation so many times with my mom. So the second part of that conversation was obviously like a dream fantasy conclusion of sorts, but dreams be dreams. I thought it was hilarious that they also talked about tattoos in the movie, and it was like not only just a once mention, but it happened I think at least twice in the movie, and I was like, of course. Mom did not like tattoos. If Mom were alive, she would freak out at this tattoo, but I think also if Mom were alive, this tattoo would not exist. So that's where we're at. I love the rock scene. I think it was such a bold choice to do that, um, to make it so childlike too. I think, I mean, everything about that movie was so chaotically good in a way that the rock scene tapped into such a fundamentally childish part of us, not childish in a bad way, but childish in like a, you can still think like a child even if you're an adult. And I just felt like the the rock scene was really exciting to see on a big screen movie. Like, it feels like something that would have come out of a college student's film dissertation of sorts. And the best thing about it was that it worked because the rest of the movie is just so everything everywhere all at once. So I mean, there were moments in the movie where it got sappy, but it's like stretching a rubber band, and this rubber band just seemed to give for so long that it never like snapped you, and it never broke. So coherent in the universe of the movie, which is amazing because the movie basically created its own universe, or I guess multiverse. And the way that it deals with death was also very cathartic. Just the kind of repetition of everything, and also the way that the two main characters, who are able to kind of collect their experiences from the different universes and exist both in themselves and in their various infinite other selves, kind of gave a cosmic sense of existential relief, as if to say, one of you might die in one multiverse, but like there's other multiverses where versions of you exist, and for the two main characters to be tapping into those various other selves gave a sort of continuity to very abrupt endings of these lives. So I really appreciated that too, from a grieving standpoint, I think. I keep thinking about that dream that I had with Mom recently, especially because I haven't posted anything new on Instagram since I posted about that dream, and I didn't say very much about that dream in that post. But it's like, I don't know why, but that post has over 2,000 likes right now, and new comments come in like a couple a day, and the comments keep saying things like, this is your mom trying to communicate with you, and this is how the spirit world gets in touch, and listen to her, and whatever you were feeling in the dream, do, because that's what she wants you to do. And I'm just like, whoa. Yes, I mean, obviously the tribute to Wong Kar-wai was very obvious. I don't really know enough about movies to I mean, like, Planet of the Apes was an obvious cheeky homage. I mean, the whole hot dog fingers thing was very, like, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The parts where it goes into animation, I don't really know, but I mean, it's just like, you don't have to dissect all of these because it's all kind of part of our collective pop culture conscience in a way. So whether or not you consciously realize what movies it's calling upon, it is calling upon a lot of greats and classics. And each of those greats and classics, I think, probably tap into very solid, recurring existential themes. Like In the Mood for Love from Wong Kar-wai tackles a lot of regret, emotional hurt, longing, uncertainty, um, the silencing of emotions and doubt, and this kind of like unspokenness that a lot of us deal with, especially when it comes to people we care about, because it's so much harder to say transparent things to people who hold a lot of value in our lives, whether it be professional or personal. Planet of the Apes, obviously, like, I've never seen it, but classic sci-fi movie where it talks about the dawn of manhood, I guess, and eternal conflict, a lot of violence and battling self and other. But it's kind of just, it's, I mean, it makes sense that this movie is what it is because the Daniels, yes, I think it's the two Daniels, their videography career was born out of music videos, and so the way that this was shot very much resembled like almost like a visual mixtape, especially in that it calls upon pre-existing aesthetics from other films. Which is to say, this film, I think, successfully does its own thing in the way that like a movie like Baby Driver didn't. I felt like Baby Driver was very much a music video too, but it said absolutely nothing new, and it didn't really, it was playful and cheeky, but it was not birthing itself in the process. And I feel like this movie was birthing itself in the process, which is amazing to see. I think after we had passed that point in the movie where like everything sort of synthesized in Michelle Yeoh's character's mind, and she finally admitted to herself what she had been pushing away, which is her daughter's perspective on life. It made me wonder a lot whether or not my mom had that moment of realization of seeing things from my perspective. There would be great comfort that comes out of knowing that while I couldn't see things from my mother's perspective, maybe she could see things from mine. And for a very brief moment, that we could be the same person. Okay, so I'm going to put a pot of water with about almost an inch of water, and we're going to put Mom's steamer over the top. Lay down some parchment so that it doesn't stick. I won't say no to more tattoos. They certainly are addictive, I think. So here's the dough. I'm just going to cut it into 3 pieces. Usually you would probably shape this, but I'm just going to see what happens if we don't, because there is a lot of air structure in there already. So if I were to press it down, because the dough is already so cold from sitting in the fridge overnight, it's going to take super long for it to proof. I don't know how long I'm going to be waiting here. It might be a while. People who drink 3 to 5 cups of coffee are less likely to have stroke or dementia. If that's true, I guess you can drink your coffee, but I will forever be skeptical of anything that comes out with research results that say one ingredient can lower anything. I'm not going to say coffee doesn't. I'm just stating my own skepticism here, because I feel like there has been many a time where even the science community itself can either be bribed by outside forces to say certain things to spurn certain sales, or that there is a mistake between correlation and causation. And, you know, we as humans like to draw patterns and conclusions out of the smallest things. But maybe nothing does matter after all. What did you guys think of the movie? Those of you who have seen it, and try to not have spoilers if you can. Although the movie is very hard to completely spoil. I'm probably gonna let this proof for half an hour, so I'm gonna set a timer, and I'm gonna think about what else I can make for myself in this upcoming week to eat with what I have on hand. Guys, I don't know why it's so hard to eat Mom's rice, but I think I have to do it. It's been agonizing me. Like, this is rice that I used in Budget Eats that I supposedly finished, I think. Or maybe I didn't finish it on screen, but I definitely didn't finish it on in real life. I think I feel so much remorse about it because I gave away a whole like yogurt jar of it so that I could just offload things off of my hands, because at the time I was so overwhelmed with finding space for mom's things in my tiny apartment and looking into storage space and thinking about the uncertainty of my future in terms of where I was going to live with grandma's. Anyway, I was just like, give away as many things as possible, especially things like rice, which I could buy. But now I have like regretted giving away so many things, and now it's come down to like the easily replaceable things like soap and rice. Um, and I've agonized myself mentally over how shall I cook the remaining cup of mom's rice? Should I just eat it plain so I can taste its flavor, so I can remember what kind of rice mom wanted? Or should I put it in a rice pudding so that I could like merge my two cultures together and make something more American? And just like the immense choice that is available to me that would ultimately result in heartbreak any way I go. Um, is so stupidly sad. I would give away rice because my kitchen is tiny. I don't have an immediate need for rice. I very rarely cook for myself because I'm constantly cooking for my job. And I also didn't want to bother friends and strangers who were offering me rides so frequently. And keeping that jar of rice would mean I would be hauling like 15 pounds on top of everything I was trying to haul back here via public transportation, if that makes sense. I know people were recommending that I mix rice together with other things and mix soap together with other soaps to make it last longer, but one day we're just gonna have to say goodbye, right? Little by little. Possibly the smallest amount of rice I've ever cooked. But why not? Let's just do it for fun. I'm going to water my plants with mom's rice water rinse. The smallest amount of rice we've ever cooked. By the way, if you know what that shoot that's growing out in the jar pot out back is, well, let me know. I moved it outside because I was like, that is a sturdy stem and I have no idea what it is. Non-scientifically just adding water in here. So we'll see what happens. I don't know how many of you have seen the new chili oil video that just went up. But I got the sweetest note today in an Instagram DM that made me feel so accomplished. Thanks for simplifying chili oil. I immediately made one with what we had on hand and it turned out pretty phenomenal. That chili video was the last thing that I filmed before I took my week off from work. And then I took my week off, I relaxed, I felt normal again and rested. Then I came back to work and I had to start reviewing the edits for that video, and one, it was so disorganized. I'm glad that like people could actually make sense of what I was trying to say in that video, because when I shot it, everything was just like filmed so incoherently, and Ellie, our video director, they did a great job on it. So thank you, Ellie. They were very patient with my asks. And in reviewing that footage, I also realized how fucking tired I looked. And I sounded tired. I looked tired. Everything was just like happening so slowly. And that's when I visually saw burnout. You don't really feel burnout until you feel dead. And I've never been able to see burnout because I've always associated previous visual representations of myself on video camera looking sad to be related to current events, because we were going through the pandemic, we were going through rounds of police shooting, killing black men, and we were going through BLM movement and seeing like at once the human spirit lifting each other up, and at once the system that we had created not caring about any of that, and just like everything that was going wrong. And then my mom died, and I couldn't feel anything anymore beyond grief. And at a certain point, I couldn't even feel grief anymore because I felt so tired from it. And so watching the edits on this video was the first time where I saw myself look tired and associated it in my brain with this work is draining. And I think seeing myself on camera like that and realizing how poorly I was performing contributed towards me having more transparent, conflicting conversations with my bosses. I have various bosses. And being more outspoken about what I need. I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but I keep thinking back to that moment, and it was a very passing moment, and I'm sure it discredited me in a professional sense to have said it. But in the meeting with my boss, I said, ever since my mom died, I realize how important it is to prioritize myself, my health, above all else. I've had the second episode of the Cairo Adventures, if you want to call it that, edited since last week. And I haven't been able to push it live yet. I don't know why, I just keep holding on to it. And I think it's because, one, I haven't started on the third part, so I feel like it's going to be a very long gap before I could start on the third part, because I'm back at work now. And I think the second thing is, once I release the second part, we are just slowly getting closer to the moment when mom actually dies. And I have to deal with it. Again, not like I ever stopped, but I think to see things on camera, like visually in front of you, to see a movie, to see a very real simulation, because that's all video is a simulation of the past. And to have to like put it together is so fatiguing. It's a lot. And I'm really just talking with myself out here with an audience, but I will have to do it. It's for myself. I shot it. Even though I didn't know what would I do with it at the point. I shot it for an unspoken, unrealized reason. And it will hurt me and heal me when I do put it together. And then I can just hopefully let it go. Usually when I make these videos, I immediately delete the file, both the original video files and the editing software file, as soon as I put it live on YouTube, because for me there's no point in keeping the footage after the video is cut. But much like being unable to use mom's rice, I've been unable to delete the footage as I've been using it because I just don't know. I keep thinking, is there something more I could be doing with this? And I honestly think that's the part that's gonna kill me. It's just trying to hold on to everything. And at a certain point, I just have to realize, like, I don't have answers. And I never will. Or rather, I can keep finding new answers, and they're all equally valid, which also means that they're all equally invalid. I mean, the bagel. What a brilliant comedic twist on something so existentially paralyzing. Meanwhile, I was killing a fruit fly on my windowsill. And just like that, I ended a life. But it was going to end itself anyway, right? Like, that's what it felt like in the movie. It's just like, what is the weight of killing one Evelyn when so many others exist? We felt sad when different versions of the characters died, or relieved, but not as sad as if the only version of that character died. Sorry, just reading the comments because I got a little carried away in my thoughts. Bye, Liza. Sorry I didn't see your goodbye until now. So Edward says, if you know it's coming and it's something you have to do, shouldn't you try your best to get it over with? Sorry to say. I think before I would have said yes, if this is something I have to do, let's get over with it. But there is no rush either if it's something that's going to happen anyway, right? Would I feel regret if I never got to put out this video? Yes. If I died somehow before I put out this video, I would feel a little bit of regret. It wouldn't be paralyzing regret. It would be a regret. But then I have to dig deeper and think about why I would feel regret over not putting out a video if my mom's already dead, if the house has already been cleared, if I'm already dealing with my grief and I'm already processing it in other ways. And I think I would feel regret because I wasn't able to express something that I think is a common experience. And I wasn't able to, in a narcissistic way almost, present it from my point of view so that others can connect to it and understand it and see it and for them to partake in it. And for me to not be so alone with it and for others to not be so alone with it. But as the movie says, nothing matters, right? Grace Under Fire says, can I ask a question? Yes. As I've said before, you can ask any question you want. Whether or not I answer it is my choice. You do you, I do me. I have tried edibles before. They're fine. Yes. I also did another substance that really helped me. organize everything perspective-wise in a very different way. That gave me an extreme sense of zen and peace. Hi, Arizona. And it is prolonging the grief, but anything can prolong the grief. Like, I can literally pick anything to be the embodiment of grief. Grief is something that I don't think we can control. Much like, so here's the thing, right? Like, I think this is something that we've talked about before on the stream, is the illusion of control. Like, our society wants us to think that we can control when we end things. We can control when we stop snacking. We can control when we go to the gym. We can control when we go to bed. We can control when we log off at work. But there are so many other factors contributing towards our individual decisions. If I'm depressed, that affects how I eat, what I eat. If I go to the gym, if I'm able to do anything else besides just like breathe. And what causes my depression? It could be a brain imbalance. It could be a gut microbiome fuck up. It could be actually just real external factors like work stress that is unnecessary, but also necessary because we live in a society that rewards us on overworking and being cogs in the machine because we still have to make rent. And like, when you start to think about the factors behind your illnesses and the reasons for the conditions that you currently live in, it is endless. So even if I got over with editing the footage, my grief will shift focus on the rice. It will shift focus on like other things that I have left over from mom. It will shift focus to the photo albums. It will shift focus to my own body, my own face, my insecurities about how much I don't behave like my mom, or that I do behave like my mom, how much I look like my mom and how much I don't look like my mom. It's just like, grief is manifested in different ways. You can change the manifestations and where you allow yourself to express it, but grief, like any other emotion, is triggered and organically born out of things out of your control. So when you try to control something that is at its very core and origin uncontrollable, that is a losing battle. That is like gripping onto a knife to change the direction. It would be much less painful and bloody if maybe you just released your grip and just let the knife go where it will. I look at it from, I connected with Everything Everywhere All at Once a lot because I look at life very much from the daughter's perspective, and there is just so much circularity and immensity to the weight of being alive. And right now, it's about managing the weight of it so that it doesn't crush me. And it's always been like this, but mom's death has been another weight. And this is, I guess what they say, trial by fire, right? You grind knives through friction, you cook through heat. Acts of transformation do not happen without pressure. Whether or not the transformation is worth it is another thing. Maybe everything is meaningless, and then what? And so, if everything is indeed meaningless, do you take that to be a curse, or do you take that to be a liberation? And no matter which one you choose out of those two, or infinitely many others of interpretation, in the end, you are only choosing for you in this current moment and instance. And I don't think it really affects anything else. Patricia, I think it is so beautiful when you have those moments where you're talking with your mom or with your past ones through yourself. Like, I remember before mom died, I said, I've already internalized everything you're going to say to me. You don't have to tell me to wear more clothes or to eat more or to whatever. Like, I know exactly what you're going to say. And I think to a certain degree that was true and untrue, but more true than untrue. And in mom's non-existence now, there is a form of, and it's not even spiritual, it is just through repetition over the years of growing up with her, under her care, that like she still exists. Her methodology with me still exists. It has been embedded in me. She has trained me. She has programmed me. And Koji, regarding celebration of a life and publishing an obituary, I never published one for mom. I feel like mom probably would have wanted me, well, she wouldn't have wanted me to do this because she wouldn't have wanted to put pressure on me, but she would have appreciated more of a going away for her. And that is one of my grief points, but I think I'm trying to comfort myself. I think I'm trying to comfort myself by viewing all that I do as a different form of memorial for my mom. Talking with her friends, posting my thoughts on Instagram, making these videos, just talking about her. Not in a one-time ceremony, not on paper perhaps, but talking about her. That sweet potato is so beautiful too. And yeah, Patricia, I totally agree. It is things that you choose to believe just to get through the day. I think one of my favorite things that I've ever written on Instagram about this grieving process is surviving is about which lies you choose to tell yourself that day. And I don't mean to say lies in a derogative way. I just say things are always a little bit untrue and at the same time also true. Lies are everything but the truth, but we rarely know what truth is. So everything is a degree of a lie. And so if that's the case, if you can't really ever grasp truth fully and you allow yourself to exist in a world of lies, then it's simply a matter of choosing which lies make you more comfortable in the moment and less likely to want to die. That's what survival is. And Rabina, when you say that sometimes when you feel empty, you fake a smile because you don't want others to worry. I mean, obviously, I'm just one person with my very set, specific case of experiences, but that's exactly what my mom did. And I would say that for people who truly love you, to not fake it and to let them know that you don't feel good, because I wish mom did that more often with me. I know that it feels like it's the more upright, moral thing to do, to appear strong all the time so that you don't bring burden onto others, which is what mom did. But community is born out of give and take. Relationships are born out of give and take. Bonds are formed through trials and tribulations. And if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable in that way, to be taken care of in that way, then you are depriving yourself and your loved ones of a connection that could deepen itself in more ways than one. And things are not black and white in terms of, am I a good person so that I don't burden other people, or am I a bad person because I burden people all the time? It's often just a mix of the two. Aaron was like asking me last night, do you love grandma? And I said almost with no hesitation, I hate grandma. And it's not true, but it's also not a lie. Grandma for me right now is the embodiment of everything that mom didn't want to be. So at the same time, it hurts me and annoys the fuck out of me to deal with her shenanigans and her needs. Fully aware that she's 94, just suffered the loss of her daughter, wants to go back home in an impossible political and global pandemic shit mess. That she feels trapped and hopeless, and I do feel bad for her, but that also her reactions to everything is impacting me as well. On the plus side, I am seeing exactly what mom didn't want to become, and in a strange, morbid way that is also hopeful and optimistic in a sense is, well, mom dying this early was exactly what she wanted in a way. Not that she wanted to die this early before she got to enjoy the world the way she wanted to in terms of traveling and experiences, but that she died before she had to become this ultimate embodiment of burden. You can't win life. The ideal scenario, I guess, would have been for mom to retire at the age of 62, travel for 10 years or more, and then to die before she suffered extreme losses to her selfhood and physical ability, right? But once you reach that point of loss, of degeneration, of helplessness, your survival instinct is still so strong. Like, Aaron and I were talking about when our ideal ages to die are, and he was like, if I ever get to grandma's point, like, I would kill myself. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't. And he was like, yes, I would. And that's the eternal debate, right? Like, when we're younger, we don't see ourselves as being older. We see that as the object. We see that as something that we must push away, that we mustn't become, because it is so disgusting to us to be so helpless. It is so horrifying to us to be so helpless and to be such an annoyance to other people. But, like, ultimately, that is the life cycle. We were born annoying and needy and helpless as babies, and that's what we return to, just in a much more disgusting form, because it's not more disgusting. Like, listen, a 95-year-old who shits herself isn't any more disgusting than a 10-month-old who shits himself. It's more disgusting because it represents the object. It represents our inevitable future towards that decline. In a baby, we see progress. We see the process of hope. We see growth. what our society has taught us is that growth beyond a certain point is decline. It's no longer part of the cycle. At this point of the apex of our lives is when we're supposed to stop the growth and start labeling it as decline, and we want to stop the decline and reverse it. But if you have a baby who shits himself and a 95-year-old who shits herself, they are still shitting themselves. Like, there's no difference in the shit that's produced. Did I ever finish my point? I don't know. I'm gonna read some comments. All of which to say, Rubina, like, allow yourself to be loved, because your loved ones will want to love you. Allow the love in. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of being a bad person. The fact that you don't want to burden other people and you recognize that is a sign of a good person who is processing feelings that are difficult to grapple with. But allow yourself to be loved, because I wish my mom did not always try to be my mom. I wish that my mom just tried to be her own person with her own flaws. And maybe I wasn't receptive to helping her and was a bad daughter, because she had always wanted herself to remain my rock. And I never saw her as anything beyond my rock. I mean, I blame myself and I blame my mom, because in a way we are one and the same. A continuation of the same, but different, but same. And it's like, not really having a rough day. This is just a normal day. Oh, and I'm slowly, definitely made the bottom of my rice golden. This is gonna be good, y'all. And yeah, Mike, like, thank you all for listening. And I think a lot of the reason why we do have people who keep coming back to these lives is it's not really about me cooking. It's more about me talking through thoughts. And there are people who think the same things and feel the same weights. And in that way, like, we have formed a community. As silly as that may sound, because I'm the only one talking, but you are also talking. And a lot of what I talk about is because of your comments and because of your engagement. And it's just, this is what humans do. Why is Aaron questioning your love for your grandma? I think it was just a question. He's not like questioning my love. He was just, we were talking about my grandma, and I was complaining about the ways in which, like, everything that she does is getting increasingly heavy on me. And so it was just a natural progression of him inquiring about the dynamics of my relationship with my grandmother right now. I don't think he meant anything by it. I'm so sorry and sad to hear about the diagnosis of your mom. It's okay to not know how to feel. You probably don't know how to feel because you feel so many things, and it's all of those things came loaded with one announcement, one update. The choice now is to fight the cancer or to not fight the cancer, both of which will result in their own set of pains. So it's a hard time. So I'm going to start steaming these buns. They've been proofing for half an hour. And I'm just gonna press this. They could probably proof a little bit more, actually, but I'm a little impatient. So let's just go ahead and turn on the heat super low so that it starts warming up the water, and then the water can continue to proof the bread gently as it heats up. Meanwhile, I'm gonna eat this crispy bottom rice while it's still crispy. I'm not even hungry, but Mom's good. You know what? Let's eat it with. I'm gonna eat it with this spoon that I grew up with. They gave away a lot of utensils and a lot of plates, and yes, I do regret giving away the duplicate of Freddie's plate, but what's done is done. This is a spoon that I remember using with my parents in the late 90s when we first immigrated here. I don't know where it's from. That's the hard thing, right? Like, if we all knew when our loved ones are dying, we would know how to divide our own emotional resources. We would be able to plan and prepare. That's the greatest fear about life, is not knowing. It's not that we don't want to die. Yes, that's also true, we don't want to die, but I think a lot of the fear surrounding death is the not knowing when and how. It's like the most morbidly torturous guessing game. And how are you supposed to plan for a life when you don't know the period? When you don't know when the line stops? How do you parse out the things you want to do if you just don't know how it's going to end? Here is Mom's rice, slightly golden. I'm gonna put some salt on it. Mom's cheap table salt, which after so many years in restaurants and food media, and everyone's like, kosher salt this, kosher salt that. I'm like, why don't we champion table salt a little more? It's way cheaper, and it's probably what normal people buy. And also, Cassie, thank you for saying this is therapy for all of us. I mean, it does help for me to hear that because it feels really narcissistic most of the time. It is narcissistic most of the time. I'm on my own live stream. Come on, but it does feel nice to know that like what I am saying goes beyond just myself. So good. So good. It's just rice, but with a little bit of toasty and salt. Imagine if I put sugar on this. Hold on. I may not be a narcissist, but I definitely do have some narcissistic tendencies. My mom always told me that even when we were in Beijing, I loved staring at myself in the mirror when she went shopping with me. She used to tell me all these moments of like, I would be shopping and I would feel like I lost you and I would turn around and you would just be like posing in the mirror. That's what 5 or 6 year old June was like. And I don't think she's ever grown up. Okay, sugar, salt. Should we try a pat of butter next? I made this like a month ago. It's Bailey's butter. Let's do it. Tastes like popcorn. Popcorn rice. Rabina, you must treat yourself, not because you love yourself, that's true, but because when you treat yourself, you are also treating the people who love you because they love you. So when you suffer, consciously or not, they are suffering too. So when you love yourself, you are also loving them. I would say overwhelmingly 60% of my grief is probably dealing with the fact that mom never afforded herself the luxuries that she so freely handed out to me. 40% of my grief is calculating and weighing out and parsing out and trying to digest the guilt that I feel for not actively loving her in the way that she so needed to be loved but was unable to express fully to me. And we're going over the 100%, but like 30% is the hate that I have for myself, that I was always stuck as the child, even as I told her I'm grown up, for not seeing what she needed as an adult. All of that is too little too late, and the only comfort I can take away from that is when mom was loving me, she was loving herself. And in the same way that, Rabina, you think you have to love other people by serving them, you have to serve them by loving yourself. Please. So I give thanks to Mom for leaving me this rice. I give thanks to past me for not giving all of the rice away and for saving some of it so I can now torture myself over the last bits of it. I was 7.5 when I came to America. Having trouble with the chat. Hold on. Popping this out so I can see you guys better. And let me just show you what's happening here. I'm not gonna lift it because once you start proofing and steaming buns, the steam inside the pot will basically start to like blow the buns up like a balloon. And when you lift up to check their progress, it's kind of opening the oven when you bake a souffle. The sudden shift in temperature and the release of the hot, warm vapors inside the area will cause the collapse of the structure. Because remember, gluten is a network of protein fibers, and bread is fluffy and puffy because the protein fibers from the gluten are holding in gas. How you make sure bread retains that fluffiness and puffiness is you bake it until it's set and you let it cool completely. If you take the hot air that's cooking it and blowing it up prematurely, it's gonna collapse. That protein structure of gluten is still gonna be there, but you're gonna be whacking the gas out of it. So you wanna make sure the gases stay in, the gluten protein structure sets, and then you cool it. Which is why you have to bake bread at such a high temperature until it almost looks burnt, especially for sourdough, because you're setting that crust so that you don't collapse it. My grandma's probably worried why I'm not there yet today. Let her worry a little. When we don't love ourselves, I think a lot of it is because of guilt, right? Like we don't feel like we deserve it. And that's what one of the first things that somebody said to me via a DM on Instagram when my mom first passed away. When I was cleaning through all her stuff, I was gonna say shit, but like that felt disrespectful. And I was like, why does she have so many things? And why was she wearing flip-flops that were bound together by rubber bands when she had like sweaters that had no holes? And meanwhile, she was patching this one up until it looked like not clothes anymore. And I think a couple people actually said like, it sounds like she had anxiety or depression. And it seemed like she felt she did not deserve good things. And at that point, you know, the feeling of like sadness to think that might have been true for my mom, and the hurt that came from hearing that from someone else was just like, what? Like, because mom never saw a therapist. Mom never wanted to say she was depressed. And whenever I told her that I was depressed, she always said like, I don't think you're depressed. I think you're just going through a hard time. And I was just like, but I think a lot of the times when you don't love yourself, it is true. It is coming from a place of guilt, of feeling like you haven't done enough to deserve this. And like, I guess that's why during the pandemic, when we were realizing how horrible capitalism was, that there were all these memes popping up saying like, self-love and self-care is revolutionary. Like, you have to realize that you are enough in this time right here, right now. And you don't need to do anything for anyone to be worth it. And I think at first we're like snickering at that idea of like, oh, self-love, what hippy-dippy shit. But if you start thinking about it in such a way that it can actually apply and adhere to your life, it's true. How many times do we deprive ourselves because we think we've been bad in a certain sense? Like, I'm not going to eat. Like, my disordered eating comes up in terms of like, well, I ate too much yesterday and now I'm fat, so I'm not going to eat today because I don't deserve to be. And I, like, that kind of thinking is ill in a way, and it applies beyond just disordered eating, because disordered eating is just one manifestation of self-esteem issues, societal issues, the feeling of the lack of control, the helplessness that comes with feeling the lack of control. So those sayings have been sitting with me for like 2 years now, because I think those popped up in the first summer of the pandemic, and now we're reaching 2 years in, and it's just hitting. Hello, Montreal. How did your sourdough starter go bad? Those things never die if you keep it in the fridge. You don't even have to feed it every day if you keep it in the fridge. I wish you guys could smell the yeasty steaminess of this all. And I wish you could see more clearly what's happening inside, but I also can't see what's happening inside because I can't lift this lid up. But it smells yeasty. You make sourdough starter by putting together flour and water in a clean jar and letting it ferment. And basically, it's a controlled rotting process. It produces this kind of acidic smell, and it starts taking the natural yeast within the flour and the environment, and it starts feeding them until the natural yeasts grow, and then that's when you see bubbling activity happen. Hello, Hong Kong. How is Hong Kong right now? It's very heartbreaking. Yes, I am eating crunchy rice. Rice that my mom left behind. The rice itself isn't that fragrant, Mom. She probably just bought it because it was cheaper, but Mom loved rice, and I do wish she could have splurged on some nicer grains of rice, but here's what she had. It's not bad. I've just had better. The truffles got mostly eaten, but then the cakes came out, and everybody was like, ooh, cake. The dark layer is fine on sourdough. Just pour off the liquid that freely flows, and you can even scrape off the top layer and discard it as a discard, but it's fine. Your starter is fine. The only time when sourdough goes bad is when it molds. If it smells like acetane, like nail polish remover, that's natural. Just pour off the dark stuff and do your proportional feeding again, and it should come back to life. certain starters, depending on the types of flours that you use, like rye, for example, produces a very acetone heavy smelling starter, in my experience. As long as you see it bubbling, and as long as there's no mold, and as long as the bubbling cycle seems consistent in terms of the length of time it takes to reach its peak in terms of the height, you're probably fine. It's probably still usable. Actually, you can't use well, you can use gluten-free flour. It's not going to function the same way because gluten-free flour doesn't have gluten. So look up a recipe. I haven't done gluten-free flours yet. It's truly, if the temperature is too hot, your starter is basically going to start to cook, and it probably goes through the ripening process too fast. Like if it's 100 degrees, it might only take your starter 2 to 3 hours to peak, which means as soon as you feed it, you have to time it so that you use it within the 2 to 3 hours. Otherwise, it's going to run out of food. It doesn't have enough flours, sugars to feed it. Excuse me, happy rice burps. So if that's the case and you're not making bread every day, just chuck it in the fridge and take it out when it's a little bit cooler, you know. I love the smell of rice. I think it is fragrant. If you haven't been feeding your sourdough starter, has it been in the fridge? If so, it's probably salvageable. If it's been sitting out, it might have killed off all the yeast. So basically what happens is you have the flour, you have the water. Inside the flour is naturally occurring yeast. As it happens with yeast, you must feed it with sugar. There are sugars in the flour. When you feed the flour into the starter's yeast starts eating and feasting on the sugars, which is what gives you that bubbling action, which is what leavens your bread. Same way if you use commercial dry packet yeast, you have to add a little bit of sugar and water and flour to generate it. If you leave out the flour and water mixture too long at room temperature, once there's no more sugar to be eaten from the flour inside the starter, the yeast will start to die because it grows extremely acidic in that jar, and the acidic environment will start to kill off the yeast and microorganisms. So you must keep feeding it, which is why you have to discard some of the starter so that you're lessening the amount of organisms that remain in the jar, and then feed it with more fresh flour and water so that they can eat and feed. That's weird. My mom loved jasmine rice. I mean, it could be just like a cilantro thing, you know? Not everybody likes every smell, but for me, I like the smell of rice. The party was fine. I basically stuck with the delish peeps who showed up, and we like just shit talked about work. Is there a secret to getting brown rice tender like basmati? For reference, there is brown basmati too. But if you're talking about whether or not brown rice can be as tender as white rice, yes and no. So the reason why brown rice is brown is because it has a bran around it and the germ inside, which is why it's more nutritious, but also a little bit more laden with arsenic, which is naturally occurring in soils, which is why mom never used brown rice, because brown rice has a higher level of arsenic because it goes through less processing. But anyway, because of that bran that covers the brown rice that hasn't been stripped away, that is what's giving you the lack of tenderness feeling, because it feels like brown rice is almost crunchy. You're popping through that bran when you chew the brown rice. There's no bran around white rice, which is why white rice is a little bit creamier in terms of texture. So one way to break down the brown rice to get it as tender as white rice is to boil it longer with more water, but then you might just end up breaking the whole grain, because when you cook it long enough with enough water to break down the bran, you're also going to be continually cooking what's inside the bran, which is the rice grain itself. So you might just turn it into mush. So no, I guess, is the answer. It won't ever be as tender as white rice because of that bran. But yes, like Swanky Angela says, you can soak it. It will help you break down the bran a little bit too. Can you use a discard? Yeah, I love to make crackers with a discard. It gives it such a nice cheesy flavor, the kind of tartness that comes from a sourdough starter. When you combine it with salt, flour, and then you throw some sesame seeds on top, maybe poppy seeds, maybe chia seeds, it almost tastes like an everything cracker because of how cheesy that starter tastes once it's in cracker form. So my favorite thing to use sourdough discard on is in crackers. You can obviously use it to make pancakes and stuff. There's many different sourdough starter discard recipes on the internet for you. Okay, so we've been steaming this for a while. I don't know if you can see it, but the buns have expanded enough that the two separate pieces have run into each other. It smells like it's cooked. It doesn't have that raw yeastiness anymore, so I'm gonna turn the heat off. I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes, no, 12 minutes, no, 15 minutes. Just let it cool off naturally, and in the meantime, I'm gonna pack up Grandma's other snacks so that once this lifts, I can take it to her. I've been thinking about what's gonna happen that one day when I go in and I take my rapid test and they're like, sorry, you're positive, you can't go in. And then what? And then how much is Grandma gonna freak out? Because everyone I know is getting COVID. Grandma is so picky that I got her these Trader Joe's Fritos knockoffs, which taste fine. They're much fatter than Fritos. Organic ground yellow corn, organic sunflower oil, sea salt. That's it. 3 ingredients. But they're not as salty, and that they're not as like evaporative in texture the way Fritos are. When you bite through a Frito, you get the crunch, and then the fried oil flavor marries together with the salt and just like eviscerates itself. And you don't really get that with this. This is more like a Fritos crossed with a tortilla chip. Grandma likes it, but I can tell she doesn't like it because she doesn't ever finish it. When I gave her Fritos, she like just inhaled it. So that's how perceptive Grandma's taste buds are. Maybe I got Grandma's taste buds, you know? I've never been to culinary school. I worked in restaurants for 4.5 years. Before then, I interned on a farm for a summer, and I worked in one of my off-campus dormitory breakfast cafeterias as a work study for a year. And that's the extent. Oh, well, and I also volunteered at God's Love We Deliver for like a summer. That's the extent of my food background, I guess. If anybody wants to hire me who never went to culinary school, let me know. Get me out of food media. If green shoot is growing out of garlic, is it still okay to eat? Yes. Some people say the green turns the garlic bitter. It's possible. I don't discern. You can also just slice the garlic in half and remove the green shoot. But at that point, the garlic has gotten older, which is why it's sprouting, because as plants reach the end of their life cycle, they sprout into new life. Which is probably why when you harvest a vegetation too late in the game, it often tastes bitter or spicy because it's like past its prime for eating, I guess. But it is not past its prime for generating new life. Never too late for that. If Jeff Bezos is looking for a home chef, that would be like my one chance to potentially kill him, wouldn't it? I'm not against creating chaos in the world. Don't mind me just checking my gram. Somebody said, things you would appreciate at Thank 9 Stars, and they tagged me. Yes, oh my gosh, I've been tagged so many times about this post of the dude who found 1,200 types of apples and saved them from going into extinction. And yes, I did crack my brand new phone. I just got this right after Mom died to transfer her memory card into another phone, and I cracked it when it was raining and I dropped my phone in the rain. But I got a screen protector and I slapped it on because I was like, not about to spend another $600 on a phone. Nope, not me. I don't know what Indian fryums are. I wonder what the health insurance would be like working for Jeff Bezos. I wonder if he would cover everything. Temperature today is
83 right now.
83 right now. Hi, Freddie.
It's like 87 very humid.
87.
And it's going to thunderstorm around 3.
Thunderstorm around 3. Wow. What a life. Freddie. Hi, buddy. Hi, Chubsters. Would you like some brushes? I'm gonna avoid your head today, okay? Because we broke some skin yesterday, didn't we? I think the pimple stopped bleeding. So unless I see any protrusions happening, I'm just gonna pretend it never happened. Cats are not as finicky as humans. I feel like they heal themselves. Freddy, come here. Come here. He's like, no treats, no go. You think I'm stupid? Fred's only here for the treats. Don't kid yourself. This cat has no feelings for me whatsoever. He just knows me as the food machine. You must wait. Let me brush you. Let me brush you first. Let me brush you first. Hey, quid pro quo. You dropped so many crumbs on the floor, Freddy. You gonna eat that? Plug my phone in. I'm going to leave you guys with Fred here while I go get dressed so I can leave for Grandma soon. But this live is about to come to an end. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great Sunday. Eat your vitamins. I mean, you can fridge your garlic, but I just leave it at room temperature, preferably in a paper bag or in a basket where it can get some fresh air. I think I'm going to bring this wonderful t-shirt to Grandma so she can crop it for me. Maybe it'll be nice to give her a project again. I don't know if she's still capable of sewing. But a lot of my t-shirts I've had her crop. So let me just measure it. This I cropped just by cutting and it's too short. So maybe I'll have her crop it here, right where the stains are, so she can get rid of some of these stains. Give Grandma something to do, huh? We all need work. All right, y'all, let's see what our buns look like. Don't know if Grandma's gonna like it. Aaron, do you want to try a bun?
Yeah.
It's just plain mantou. You can dip it in spicy chili oil.
That seems like something I'd like.
You want to get out the chili oil?
Yes.
Put it on a plate?
This is basically like we're at 5.
Yes. Why does my phone charger keep disconnecting itself? Can I break open the mantou? Ooh, you can show people the chili oil too. Damn, that's some good chili oil. Okay. All right, we ready for the break?
Tingmo. What's the difference?
One is Tibetan, one is Chinese. There you go.
Other than that,
Not much.
we're very hot.
So my favorite part about steamed bread is this layer of skin that forms. I don't know if you can see it.
That's my favorite too.
Yeah. It's like tender.
Hey,
How is it?
Great.
How's it smell?
Payal's Tingmo has a sort of like a little tartness to it. Have you noticed that?
Maybe I should just keep the dough for a little bit longer.
Yeah, this is
Here's the
amazing
skin.
texture. It's perfect texture, but Payal's flavor is better.
Payo.
Yes, I'm trying to do it right for my the best restaurant in New York.
The best restaurant in New York is Payo, but spelled Fayul. P-H-A-Y-U-L. Oh my god, that chili was amazing.
Mhm.
Fuck. Wow.
Freddie thinks so too. What a cutie! Illegally cute. That shouldn't be allowed. How cute he is. Bread cat. He's a steamed bun cat. Does he eat baked bread or just steamed bread?
He likes both, I think.
Thank you very much, Tim.
You're not gonna have the rest?
That was your slice of beef raw.
No, it's for you.
Oh.
Sop up all that chili oil. Freddie, you made me lose bread. You're not gonna eat it? You just wanna, okay, fine. Jerk.
I'll make a sandwich soon and finish
Okay, I'm gonna shut off the live
Mm-hmm.
so I can go to Grandma.
Grandma.
So here's what we made for Grandma. I hope she likes it. This time, no vegetables whatsoever, nothing green. If she complains again, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. I will, but JK comes with the territory. But I will lose my fucking mind again if she complains. Peace, y'all.